Welcome to the first video about the Middle Ages, covering the contents of what's going to enter in our term exam. So the first thing we're going to look at is the Middle Ages. What is it, when it happened, and what came before. So hopefully you already know this. You should have your notebook open in front of you so that you can look for the answers as I ask questions, because it'll help you to revise. So I have three things here that I want you to be able to answer. Firstly, what's the other name for it? The other name. Look in your notebook. Better if you know it by heart. The dates, which are approximate. And the name of the period it came after. So what period was before it? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it or to look it up before I put the answers. The first answer is the medieval period. The second answer is from 500 to 1500. And here I'm going to ask you, is that BC or AD? I really hope you get that right straight away. The answer is AD. And the last answer is the period before was when the Roman Empire ruled. Sorry, not when the Roman Empire was strong and ruled. Okay, so that's the Middle Ages, and the first thing we need to know is what happened in Europe after the empire fell. Again, hopefully you already know the answer, which is the Germanic tribes invaded and kind of took over, and various problems occurred. You should try and list the problems now. There are 5 of them. Okay, so here are the answers. The first thing is that trade's disrupted. The second thing, cities are ruined. The third thing, population changes. The fourth thing, there is a loss of learning. And the fifth thing, there's a loss of a shared language. Now, that's the easy part. The hard part is answering an exam question based on these points. So, let me put an example in the next slide and let's analyze it together, because I've noticed that a lot of you struggle to read and interpret questions correctly. Okay, so here we have the answer again, but I've added the question, and let's analyze it. Here are the 5 problems the Germanic invasions caused in Europe after the fall of Rome. Okay, so I've given you, for example, the actual answer here. Now, what you're not to do is just explain what they mean, because the question then says, explain not what they mean, but explain how the invasions and these problems are connected. We're talking about cause and effect. Not only that, the question stipulates that it must be in your own words. Therefore, you cannot just repeat exactly sentences that you have read in the book. I do not want you to have memorized sentences and put them down in the exam, because it doesn't show me that you necessarily understand. So now you should try and answer the question. We've more or less done this in our notebooks, but I need you to make sure that you understand what the question is asking and how the answers in your notebooks are the correct ones. If any of you think you don't have the correct answers, be sure to ask one of your classmates, or of course ask me. And just to end this short presentation, I'll ask you a few questions based on those problems to see how much you know or remember, or to have you read the answers in your notebook and therefore revise. The first question is, why did the population change and how did it change? So the first part means you need to explain the reason for the change, and the second part means you need to explain in what way, as in people went from one place to another, the population increased in what place, the population decreased in what place. The second question is, why was there a loss in learning? You should think of another way to say loss in learning. Hopefully you have come up with it. It's like a decline in knowledge, decline in education, etc. And you need to be able to say why that happened. Finally, another question I could ask is, why did Latin stop being the official language? Now I would like you to think, what problem that the Germanic invasions caused does this question relate to? Of the problems 1 to 5, which one does this relate to? Hopefully you've managed to answer number 5. Why? Because when the Germanic tribes invaded, they lost a shared language. Latin was the official language of the Roman Empire. The majority of people could speak it and use it to communicate. But when the Germanics invaded, they came from outside the Roman Empire and had their own languages. And therefore, when they dominated in Europe, they introduced these languages. These languages then evolved and developed into what we now speak: English, Spanish, French, etc., and were influenced by Latin. But people no longer all spoke one language, just like nowadays. Well, thank you for listening. I hope it's been helpful, and I'll upload another video soon.